Here's a basic field. Here's a thrower going this way, down here. All by himself, this thrower, actually, the field is really simple. If we assume it's right-handed, right? So this is the forehand side, the backhand side. Simple forehand, backhand throws, deep throws down here, the dump area back here. The field is really simple with just that thrower. So if you're a receiver, you can actually go anywhere, and the thrower is probably going to hit you, right? The big change that happens now is when we put the mark on. When you throw the mark on, the field immediately divides into regions, just like that car has regions. The relationship between this thrower and that mark tells you a whole lot. You automatically know that there's a dead zone, right? If you cut into there, it's going to be hard for the thrower to hit you. There's going to be the forehand and the backhand passing lanes. Those should be very easy for that thrower. There's going to be the break mark regions, kind of diagonal out behind the mark. And then there's some deep areas here where if the thrower is good enough, they'll hit you with a long flat throw, or they'll hit you with a big outside in, right? Outside in, forehand or backhand. But it's just like the cars. As soon as you read the mark, these primary zones should show up: dead zone, break, and then the major passing lanes. And if you're on the field, you recognize where which way the mark is, which way these zones are oriented. It actually tells you where you could be cutting to and where you probably should not be cutting to, just by reading the mark. Okay. Now this is straight up, and certainly here's the previous slide here. Certainly, with forced defenses, the mark is not always down, straight up. The mark is going to rotate one side or the other. The only thing that happens is this whole pattern just rotates sideways. And here's an example of this on a track. Here's the thrower the mark is trapping. This whole pattern just follows, it's basically the shadow of the mark, right behind the marker. And so the dead zone is now sideways, horizontal. You've got the break marks and then the passing lanes. Even though you're going downfield this way, with the trap here, even though the thrower has one lane to throw into, this is the forehand, right? But, it looks like the backhand's been taken away. This is actually not really the case. Just because this thing has rotated, the backhand passing lane has just rotated, and there's actually all safe area back here, which is actually easy to throw to. You're losing yardage, but it's easy to throw to. And that's the important part here. It's easy to throw to. It means that as a receiver, instead of the receivers really concentrating on this downfield passing lane, receivers, especially the handlers back here, if you want to give the thrower an easy throw, you actually you give up a bit of yardage, but the pass can be so easy that the throw gets off, and it just can start moving again. So there's nothing ever really lost by going back here if the thrower needs an easy throw. This whole area also is available for, and this would be a backhand outside in throw. This is a throw to space here. This is also a very high percentage place for the thrower. And so as a receiver, if you're lined up here, you don't always have to think downfield cuts. You can actually think, oh, lots of space back here for the back passing area here. Okay. You gain this information because if you read the mark, you immediately know where the dead zone is, and you know where these passing lanes are. Okay, just by reading the mark. Okay.
Hey, jump in.
Yeah, please.
And just sort of think about this. I mean, just think about this as our from a dump cut perspective, the way we make our dump cuts. Kind of lined up in that dead zone, we try to cut up line into that forehand passing lane, which we can get. But then most of the time, we just reverse our cuts 180 degrees and head back. And that's why it's really important it's really easy and lucrative to get that throw, because the thrower can just put that soft backhand out into the space. Not directly, not trying to jet it right into the cutter's hands, but out into the space. Where it's an easy pass, easy pass.
Yeah, this actually is kind of transition from having to always throw these flat bullets to your receivers, as opposed to taking advantage of like outside in throws that have a little bit of arc and a little bit of hang, and you throw them to space and let your receiver run to it, so that you don't have to just like get the two receivers just hitting each other at the same time. Perfect example for these dump cuts. Okay. So this happens all the time on the field, and even if I think you guys are playing at like a 45-degree mark on your defense, is that right? So you can imagine that if the marker here is playing 45 degrees, this whole pattern just slides over 45 degrees, right? The dead zone is going to be here. This backhand passing lane pushes backwards here, but the forehand passing lane actually opens up a lot more than it is under a straight up mark. Okay. We're going to see how this actually comes into play for kind of a specific marker play here. Actually, before we do that, I've got some images from this is 2006 finals, I think. This is the women's finals here, BC versus Santa Barbara. I want this is a stop disc here, two handlers here. I want just to give you a chance to see what kind of space exists here. And we're actually kind of thinking about this space back here. Okay. I drew I drew. Here's the marker, so I drew the dead zone here. It might actually be a little more downward here, coming up in here. It looks like there's a huge passing lane here, but in reality, it's the dead zone here because of the direction of the mark. This marker is actually about 45 degrees here. But if you look at the handlers here, look at all this space back here, right? If you were and this is the point of view of the thrower. The thrower's looking at this, and the thrower's probably thinking, boy, that's a piece of cake for me as the thrower. And especially given how they're lined up, kind of protecting the downfield strike. Basically an outside-in dump out here, a floater here. This receiver just has to turn around and run to it, to the point where that throw can actually happen before that receiver moves. They just need a little eye contact, but it's a piece of cake to play.
Yeah, the way it's set up right now, it looks just like a vertical stack with the defense on the break side. I mean, it's an easy throw.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, if you guys were doing the dumb throw with me yesterday, we were talking about this with Ginger. He was just standing there waiting for someone to throw, because we as throwers got to recognize if the D is poached that far off, just like Dave said, you can just put it out into space before they even make that cut. That's the easiest throw. You've already got 5 yards of space. Don't take 2 or 3 steps into that person. Let them get closer to you. If you have that space, we as throwers need to recognize, along with the cutters, that that's the easiest space to throw in.
That's exactly right. If I were the thrower in this case here, I wouldn't actually want my receiver to do that move, because it's really true. If you make a move, you lose the separation. The defender's now on you, and no matter what you do, that defender will be on you. If I were the thrower, I would actually rather just throw what's easy for me to space, and then let you see that I've thrown it, and then just respond to it. And I would throw it in a way where there's enough hang time to allow you to see it that's in the air, and then have you be able to run to it. That would be my job as a thrower, to throw it like that. But it's a really easy way to get the disc moving, because nobody has to actually start a cut. It's sort of it's almost implicit that it's going to be there and that could be done. But I'll talk about the nonverbal communication part of that in a sec. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Does that make sense, what we're seeing here?